Mr. Speaker and honorable members. Mr. Speaker, I want to first off congratulate the Honorable Minister Ashley Singh, Minister of Finance, who has again exceeded all expectations. In bringing a national budget to this honorable House, which will clear the pathway for more and rapid development of our country. Exceeded himself, and I want to thank his staff and all the other persons in the ministries, including mine, who have facilitated this budget and its presentation. Mr. Speaker, again, as was the last time, it is exceedingly disappointing to come to hear the presentations from the AP and UAFC opposition in respect of this national budget. Guyana is at perhaps again one of its most propitious moments in its development. Its most propitious moments in its development. And the vision of the PPPC in government, based on our national motto too, and taking into account the challenges we face over the time that the AP and UAFC was in government, and taking account of what we need to do to carry this country forward. He speaks and we speak of one Guyana. We speak of one Guyana. And we know that we will not fail in this mission. And no person, in fact I could even go biblical, no weapon formed against us will prosper in this mission. None. No weapon formed against us in the mission of one Guyana will fail. Mr. Speaker, the presentations again suggest that I don't want to say that perhaps the AP and UAFC have again lost their minds. I don't want to suggest so much so that we're getting responses from people who are suffering from schizophrenia, paranoia, jealousy. This is what their presentations have been about. And I say again, that these presentations from the AP and UAFC are disgraceful. Disgraceful presentations on the floor of this honorable House. But again, it is their standard mode of operation. Going along with and again, they have the young brigade parroting what they say, going along with their disgraceful attempts of stealing the, well, let me say suborning, I withdraw the word disgraceful, undermining our democracy, attempting to do things which a former prime minister of a country, of another country, spoke of a sanctimonious gangster, who was the leader of that party.
Honorable Minister, I was checking for disgraceful, I didn't see it, but I also won't allow it. But gangster and criminals are not allowed. Even if you're quoting, you can't quote an unparliamentary Honorable Manichan word in the House. I will stop allowing it.
Mr. Speaker, unlike before who said they were guided, I am actually withdrawing those remarks.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the facts are well known in relation to the difficulties we've had in terms of restoring democracy to our country, in restoring lawful authority and governments to our country, in preventing a situation where we would have lost proper accountability and governance of our country. And hearing the presentations here again suggests that we perhaps will never have an engagement where there will be rational presentations, we will have a rational discourse based on facts, not alternative facts, or I don't want to say that word, not on alternative facts, but on contrived truths in relation to the development of our country, the performance and intent of our government in power now, the PPPC, and in relation to coming together in a national mission to make our country whole, our people safe and secure, and that we move deliberately and quickly on the path towards peace, prosperity, and further development. Mr. Speaker, I don't believe I'll have enough time, and I'll have to take additional opportunities elsewhere to answer the load of inaccuracies, the monstrous statements which were made in relation simply to the development of our country, but also in relation to the overall question of governance in our country. I don't want to spend too much time on the record of the APNU AFC in government. And if I follow the statements made by the Honorable Member David Patterson just now, I would need much more time. But what I want to say is, as was said before, in respect of energy, in respect of oil and gas, it was developed over a number of years by the PPPC in government. Janet Jagan, who they excoriated, who they were beating dollies on the road in front of the office of the president, signed the first agreement with with ExxonMobil, with Esso Exploration. And I believe I, as Commissioner of Geology and Mines, signed that document alongside her. Excellent. Now we have all kinds of experts here on oil and gas and energy and development. And when we were out there shooting seismics in the ocean and exploring the interior for oil and other minerals, we didn't have any interest in it, but we got all kind of experts on the other side now. When we did all of those things, there was no interest in it. There was criticism. When we brought a budget in the first time when the APNU AFC, I think they had a majority of one, they signed, they refused to accept a national budget. Again, a national. It simply states that too many a personal mission, only mission in life, development occur in our country. And the Honourable Member David Patterson just spoke. And he has perhaps to vindicate all of the things he undertook in respect not only in respect of the signing of agreements for oil and gas along with another minister who was, previous minister who was here, but also in respect of the Milo Falls project. Nor consult supported the continuation development of the Milo Falls hydropower project. We have the documents. He says he will lead, that is Honorable Member Patterson, he will lay his own easy over. But we need to read them properly to understand what is being said in those documents. But, Mr. Speaker, the development pathway, the development in our country was largely interrupted under the stewardship of the APNU AFC in government. They're talking about employment for all Guyanese all over. Imposing VAT and other imposts on the people. They fired, I think, 1,200 young Amerindian people. 972. 1972 young Amerindian people, community development workers, all over Guyana. Mr. Speaker, our Amerindian people live the most precarious lives in Guyana. Our Amerindian people need the most support in terms of their development. And it angers and upsets me when people stand up and talk here about what they do and what they intend to do and what they should have done in respect of the Amerindian people. Mr. Speaker, what about the other people? What about the sugar? What about protecting rice during their time in office? The first thing they did was to knock off 7,000 sugar workers of all colors and stripes and races and ethnicities and religions in Guyana. An export project, and each one of those persons who was fired had 7 to 10 persons whom they had to support in the sugar belt. 70,000 people affected by the fallout onto the bread line. And here they talk about workers, the working class, and they talk about the Skeldon Sugar Factory. They talk about sugar and export product for Guyana, and which had to do so much with the development of the country. Not to mention rice, where they promise $9 and $10 and $50,000 in Essequibo for a bag of paddy. And they talk about buying votes. Impossible in any place. And then when they took over, the rice collapsed. And then we sold some rice, and the people couldn't get paid for the rice. And they worry about and talk about the working class and the working people and all of that thing. They took away the AP and UAFC, took away the cash grants to children in this country, take money out of picnic them out. That's what they did. Now that we have increased it, they talk about how much more these things should go up and so on. And we talk about sanctimonious. Mr. Speaker, it was just said, Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you how much they really love people. They encourage the blocking of the river at Hururu, near Kokwani, related to Rusal. It was said by Minister Bikram. And, sir, it resulted 700 people losing their jobs, prime workers in their prime, the loss of product for shipment, for income to the country, and another 300 or more at New Amsterdam. And they said they love people. And I don't think I need to have to say what race or ethnicity those people are. They talk about how they love Region 10. And honorable member, by convention of the House, of course, David Patterson comes in here and says, excoriate again, to justify, to vindicate the positions that the AFP and the AFC took on the Milo Falls project, took the position again to denigrate the project. But Mr. Speaker, the Milo Falls project was designed to bring 165 megawatts of clean power to the first town at a port in Guyana, which was the port of Linden. It would have provided the opportunity for the rejuvenation, the reduction in the cost of power for industry in Linden. It would have provided the opportunity for us to bring back larger stripping machines into the area and also to open up a new 1,200,000 ton alumina plant. That is what the Milo Falls project was ultimately intended to do. Reduce power by half and bring back large industrial capacity in Linden. But their honorable member, Patterson, would stand here again and excoriate the project. Pull it down. Pull it down. And so it was no strange thing that when they were in power, that the visiting committees from Norway and other places evinced that there was no government support from the APNU AFC for the Milo Falls project. And that the Milo Falls project was a precursor to a Tortuga project, which would have been bringing 950,000 megawatts of power into the country to reduce power, clean power completely. Mr. Speaker, I will not go into who built what and who built what. I know that we did the West Coast Road. I know that we did the East Coast Road. They took it over while it was being done. I know that the bypass project, Ogle, and the other places were conceptualized by us. I know that the government of India had given us money for that bypass road project, and it was never used. I know that the money for the new faster ferry to the Northwest District was there to be used, and they never used it. Never used it. The Honorable Minister, Bishop Edgell, stated that the ferry will come here just now, bringing relief to the people in the Northwest District and to bring back the Northwest District area to a place which will export food back to the capital city, to the rest of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the honorable members of the AP and UFC speak about the temporary rise in the cost of living. The honorable members talk about the prices of things in border market, and I would think that any challenges, any rise in prices suggests opportunity. And when people talk about Bora and Baji and Paksha and these things, maybe you should get your people to go and plan some of these things to take advantage of the opportunity of earning an income of reducing prices and making everyone else happy with respect to the situation. But that is what will happen. But I remember when they took over at Bath Settlement, they sent teams of people to come shallow beds, to come people shallow beds. And to say you have to pay so much taxes from these shallow beds, they went into people's gardens. And some people got angry and they dug up the shallows and threw it away, some of it. This is how they love people. And Mr. Speaker, the former president of Guyana in the last dispensation went to a village on the East Coast where a young lady did fantastically well at CXC and said that the place where they mined the gold was great for them, but it don't know. And there was a visible gasp in the room. Visible gasp in the room. And it resulted in persons from Anns Grove not going back to re-engage in the fields. And it resulted in persons, just after they took over, coming into the city and other places, going into people's shops, taking away people's stuff, and telling them, grain just send them fit. Grain just send them fit. They stole people things at the markets in Rob Street and Regent Street. And they wonder about the question of collapse and the problem of youth and the problem that we have in bringing back our society to a question where we would all be safe. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the honorable member that I'm a geologist by profession, and I am legally and lawfully and professionally required to carry a hammer. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, yes, let's talk about public security. Let's talk about public security. Mr. Speaker, yes, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member, Ms. Geeta Chandan, in her delivery yesterday, said, excellent, that's why I'm coming back to it, said that people are being choked and robbed every second. Every second. Mr. Speaker, the simplest of probability would mean that as a female, the honorable member Geeta Chandan Edmonds would have been robbed 54 times in 2022. Choked and robbed 54 times in 2022. Yeah, I'm reminded that numbers are not the strong point of the AP and EFC. But that's the kind of stuff that they bring to this floor of this house. Of course, crime is a serious problem. And since you're raising the issue of crime, I'll go to statistics. You don't want the statistics now? No. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the statistics are ours and theirs. The statistics are ours and theirs. And Mr. Speaker, robbery with violence in 2012, in 2015 rather, decreased. Decreased from 2017 it was 143. In 2022 it was 76. Mr. Speaker, burglary decreased from 177 in 2018 to 108. Break and enter and larceny reduced from 926 events to 496, almost by half. Mr. Speaker, the overall decrease in the crime statistics between 2015 and 2022 is a decrease of 20.6%. We have reduced total robbery, serious crime, murder and violence by average figures of 20%. And of course, it would not have been reduced or recognized in your day because you're busy with other things. And Mr. Speaker, and yes, I heard about firearm licenses. And I'm saying again on the floor of this House that I will review all of those licenses which the Honorable Member Comrade Ramjatan signed off on in his period. Mr. Speaker, we have always drawn the link between political activity, crime, and violence. And an honorable member who spoke before me on the floor here said something which would otherwise be monstrous. The honorable member, she said that it's only when the PPPC is in government that school is born. A frank admission on the floor of the House. So, apparently at a political level, in our discourse and what we do, that there is a rational beneficiary of the burning down of schools in this country. A rational, logical beneficiary. It was admitted to at that podium over there this morning. And Mr. Speaker, so it's not no use to come here and express platitudes about the burning down of schools and the fact that thousands of school children and teachers and the other facilitators are at their wits' end, particularly the Minister of Education, as to where to house the students, how to make sure they succeed at the exams, and all the other issues relating to the question of education. But we could understand why we have some of these problems. It has to do with the example given by some of us in this House. If people see on the TikTok or on videos a school teacher from St. Joseph High School chasing people with a cutlass. Chasing people with a cutlass. We now understand why the schoolgirls are fighting in St. Joseph High School. We now know. And then when at Mocha, people squat and take over and refuse for months to move from where development has to proceed for everyone, and where they were given the offer of a new house, they were given money to relocate, they were given other issues to facilitate that removal. They refused to move. They refused to move, and when you come and move them, and they fight it with the police with a cutlass, and ultimately they're fired, everyone is up in arms about the matter. But criminal behavior is criminal behavior. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
On that note, Honorable Minister, I'll strike criminal, but we'll need an extension to continue.
Mr. Speaker, I would love my colleague to speak for a very long time. I therefore seek additional time for him to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Minister Teixeira. Honorable Minister, you will have another 5 minutes uninterrupted to conclude.
Time could not, given the issues I had to particularly deal with, to deal comprehensively with the issues of crime and violence. I've said that it has reduced. I'm saying that it has a lot to do with our support to the Guyana Police Force, with the provision of new vehicles, with new training, with new efforts in respect of crime and violence and the prevention and mitigation of that. I have said before that our approach now is a more empathetic approach, that we have taken the results here on the floor of this assembly to take less lethal resorts in the engagement between the police and the public. I am identifying that in respect of the Guyana Fire Service just recently and even now, we're working on bringing in, other than those which we brought in last year, 7 new fire assets to fight fires, along with 3 modern ambulances. We are talking largely over the country that we are pursuing a program called Increase the Peace. Increase the Peace, falling about the Citizen Security Strengthening Program, which started under Clement Roy, to increase peace in Guyana. But the first place peace has to be increased is on the floor of this honorable house. Mr. Speaker, we have had dramatic increases in the seizures of narcotics based on the work of the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit. We have had more arrests done in respect of illegal, lawful activity. We have had, and I have to admit it, that we have had a tremendous increase in the prison population over the period by some 14%, 2,156. Presumably mostly bad people in the prisons. We're talking about putting in, with the new prison infrastructure that we're building at Lusiknan, a school, a health center, a new women's prison. We're talking about having education for them. We're talking about a release program called Fresh Start, to enable them to move to gainful employment, re-engagement, rehabilitation with the society and with their families. We will do these things. Mr. Speaker, we identify again that the problems subconsciously engendered in some people's minds in respect to lawless behavior, to not pursuing ambitious issues in personal self-development, has to do with political messaging of a negative kind. We say, and I asked before, that honorable members of the House of the APNU AFC separate themselves, disavow the remarks made by a certain person in New Jersey, on whose stage some members of the APNU AFC were. They made presentation this year, where it was said, Georgetown must run down if PPC doesn't come out of office. I want the honorable member Raj Natan, as a leader remaining here, I don't see the rest, disavow those remarks, separate himself and his organization from, you must stand up and say it here in this house. Because if schools are burned, if public property is burned down, whose taxes, whose monies, whose effort over the years, whose children are inconvenienced? It is all of ours. Yes, we agree on that. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'll give away if Mr. Speaker, I'll give away if the honourable member will disavow. Violence and destruction of schools.
You could write it for me and I will certainly deliver it. Yes. It is.
With due respect to two of my long-standing colleagues, I will allow that exchange, which you guys didn't give me a chance to say yes or no to. And it will be in the record. Thank you, Honorable Kemraj, for that statement. Honorable, you get back your time.
Thank you,
Honorable
Mr.
Minister,
Speaker.
please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honorable Member Kemraj Ramjatan for that specific statement, which is now in the Hansard. And I want him to make sure that he maintains that posture, that attitude, and that he spreads the message with those whom his organization relates.
All five of them.
All of them.
All five of them.
That this message is spread.
All five of them.
Mr. Speaker, I want to close on one particular point in terms of the overall aspect of how we develop our country and the Parliament. Mr. Speaker, many years ago, even when the political debate was protracted, dangerous even, there was a shining moment where the two political leaders of Guyana, Burnham and Jagan, had a tryst, a discussion, an agreement on a certain measure. And Mr. Speaker, that was to allow troops from a certain country to land in Guyana, to be refueled, and to fly to Angola and Mozambique, to pursue the eventual successful fight against apartheid. A single important and precious memory in the history of our country. And Mr. Speaker, it grieves me thinking of those things, that persons would stand up here in this house from the APN AFC and say that Guyana is an apartheid state. Something was codified in the laws of the Boer Republic of South Africa. Something that volunteers from Cuba went to fight
It's an insult to the real victims of
so that Southern Africa is free today. and we assisted in the initial response to fight against the apartheid regime in South Africa when they invaded Angola. So, I like to say, you know, when I was a little fella, I used to write on a slate, and I am sure Ramjitan and others too used to write on a slate. And people who would jump up and say, he's still honorable. He's even more honorable today. That an apartheid state, you could Google it. You don't have a slate to read. You could Google Wikipedia and see what apartheid means. And I am amazed that in this day and age, that people who have the benefit of Google and who could get instantaneous information will stand up on the floor of this house and say that Ghana is an apartheid state. It's an insult to the memory of the people who fought, an insult to Mandela, insult to all of those who fought in Southern Africa for the freedom of those countries, an insult to the memory of our Guyanese who's afforded the position to allow those troops to go. And some Guyanese even went there, and a few died. Insult to their memory. So, Mr. Speaker, if the members on the other side want to know how the battles for the liberation of Southern Africa, the release of Mandela, or the Battle of Kuto Kanavali was won, they must Google it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.